Yo, how are you doing, folks? Welcome to episode 22 of the Simpa Life Podcast. I am Simpa. As always, I'm joined by Maka. How are you today, sir?
Not too bad, not too bad. I just want to extend another apology there to Marti, because this is the second time we've had him on in a couple of days, because we had a crash out halfway through the first recording and we ended up with half an episode. Pain in the arse, but you learn as you go.
Indeed.
Sorry,
indeed.
mate. Sorry.
Don't worry about
Welcome
it.
back.
It's a pleasure.
So today's guest, as you will have just heard, has been on the podcast before, but not that you wonderful folks have heard him yet. So for the second time, I would like to introduce Marti. He's the founder of the Goods. He's also been involved with the launch of several of the brands, shops and businesses within the sector. Very good fucking person. I've got a lot of time for Marti. He's helped me a lot over the years. The brand that he has created as well is quite bespoke and quite unique. And I think that he is one of the sort of only UK-based brands that are actually representative of the culture. They are not just seeking to profit and capitalize from the people that consume cannabis. They're actively trying to represent them. So without further ado, I will pass you on to talk to Marti for the first time, guys.
Thanks for having me, by the way, second time. It's a pleasure. I guess I'll do, that was a good introduction, but I'll start it off with my entry into cannabis and maybe talk a bit about myself. So, I got into this industry like 4 years ago, coming back from university. So I just graduated with an undergraduate, and I came back looking for an immediate job. I was going to do a master's, so I needed something that worked around the school hours, and found myself responding to an Instagram ad for a retail position in London for one of the first CBD shops of its kind. So I immediately, pretty much a week into me landing back into this country for my studies, I was working in this industry. It was my first proper professional job. And I loved it. Did it under the wing of a great mentor who taught me lots about cannabis, and especially CBD. It was a completely new thing to me back then. I'd only really experienced THC through my consumption. Obviously, I'd been consuming all kinds of other cannabinoids, but without knowing it. 6 months later, 8 months later, I decided I wanted to do my own thing. So I started my first brand. That didn't take long to be successful. I guess everything I learned in that retail position was very useful in starting my own business. And soon afterwards, I started to bring more people on board, especially my family. And we built more brands to the point where we're here now with the Goods, which is our latest brand, and definitely the one that holds my most passion. This is really characteristic of how I like to enjoy cannabis, which is the fun way. And we're building a lifestyle out of it, focusing on things that can be legally sold in the UK, and with ambitions to eventually flip the switch and focus on THC.
Excellent.
And it fucking looks good too, doesn't it?
So the we've got a little bit
he's back. He's back.
It's all
good. We haven't lost this episode yet.
Damn, I was going to say, introducing for the third time, folks.
That's it, yeah.
So that was quite concise. It's pretty much covered my first question, which would have been sort of when and why and how you got into this industry. So I suppose my question would be, why is the Goods focused on vapables?
We're really focused on the most immediate affecting consumption method. And also, to be honest, the one that resonates most within our team. We're all inhaling cannabis. Very few of us are taking, drops or sublingual, the water soluble capsules or edibles. We're really the kind of people that look for immediate effects. And also we're social. So, we focus on things that can be shared or done in groups.
Mm. Excellent. Well, you've obviously you've got the dab pens, and you've got sort of various extracts and sort of products, and so it's quite interesting that the Goods, I suppose, then your company are in quite a good position given what's happening with the FSA, the Food Safety Agency in the UK, who are going to inherit CBD regulation from, well, basically 2 weeks from now. As far as I'm aware, that's only for consumables, and they haven't classed vapes as consumables. So does this mean that you won't be regulated by Novel Foods?
Indeed, because they don't fall through the novel foods category, we're for now in a very safe position, and our products won't be off the shelf or tested through any, typical applications. But we want to eventually delve into some of those consumables maybe down the line, especially working with I want to be in the sort of warm foods industry with cannabis eventually, not necessarily the gummies and things like that, but working with restaurants and creating unique products. But to be honest, it's a bit difficult to do that right now. So holding off, focusing on inhalables for now.
Yeah, but there was I can't remember the name of it. There was a restaurant sort of come shop in Brighton, wasn't it? They got rated the other year for it. And
Canna Kitchen.
That was the one, yeah. There's been a few other sort of projects that I've heard of here and there. And yeah, because of the various other then regulations of restauranting and that sort of industry and business, it then becomes, quite complex to apply sort of cannabinoids, even novel sort of isolates to food and sell it and regulate it in that way. It is an industry that I think really does need some attention, because we all benefit massively from the consumption of cannabinoids. We all, even if just eating raw cannabis. So if these places could then provide the actual sort of carbonous material, the leaves and everything else, that is highly nutritious. So that plus then the phytocannabinoids means you're getting the best of both worlds. You get something that is really highly nutritious and something that is highly supplemental to your endocannabinoid system.
I want to see that kind of become the new shot of wheatgrass thing. Do you remember that thing?
Have you tried that Karma hemp juice that's sold in sort of like frozen cubes?
No. Where do I get this?
I think I have a while ago.
Yeah, they're in Ireland. They've got I think they've got the biggest organic certified, or like the first organic certified hemp farm in Europe. And I remember when I was working shop floor a few years ago, entering this industry, we had a guy come over from that company, and they brought some samples over. And I got to say, the flavors, they're not aesthetic, so you don't really drink it for the flavors or anything. But in terms of feeling good afterwards, whether it was a placebo or not, I did feel good and I felt healthy. It wasn't like some of those overly sugary smoothies or whatever, where you're meant to do good for your body. But
I'd imagine it to be slightly bitter, but I definitely have it. That kind of way. I have something in my fridge. I'm not going to go get it now, but I was thinking about it. But I do a sort of a daily shake, almost a daily shake, for most parts of the week. But it's it's based on Rhonda Perlman's daily kale shake or whatever, and it has basically every type of superfood that you need in this thing. And then you neck the fucking thing. It's not the most palatable thing in the world, but honestly, I'm on this now months, and it gives you boundless energy, and it does make you feel really, really good. And the poos, water slide.
Oh my god! So the image I've just had in my head there. If we ever make this a success, you're gonna have an entire product line of nutraceuticals, and that's gonna be the tagline: the poos.
No, but it's the truth, right? So I definitely want to see that become, because we know it's fucking good for you. We know full plant. We know every part of it is fucking good for you. So I want to see fucking athletes on it. Do you know that kind of way? I want to see that.
To be fair, if we get the margins down, if we were to truly have a global industry, you would see all of these multivitamins and minerals would have cannabinoids in. They would have, same within the omegas, instead of deriving them from fish oils or whatever, we'd be deriving them from hemp seed oil. Do you know what I mean? We can utilize every part of this. Even waste parts at the minute, things that people put into mulch. So like I said, with the leaves and the sticks, in some studies, they found that dependent on the environment that they're growing in, can still produce up to 9% cannabinoids. So if we're then wasting that material, it could literally then go into all of these other things. If we then strip it off and we would then take the nutrition from the leaves and whatever from the cannabis plant, we could then use that plus isolated cannabinoids to fortify in grains. So the same way we have niacin or whatever in cereals. So we could then fortify grain foods and everything else with non-psychoactive cannabinoids or low psychoactive cannabinoids. And again, if they're in the acidic form, they're non-psychoactive because they haven't been carboxylated. And then because they're consumed rather than combusted, but not altering them over, it's a gray area in the law. But if we got rid of the law, it could create this bespoke boutique industry of cannabis as a food supplement, as truly as a food supplement.
Yeah, well, there's definitely room for that sector in the industry with the oversupply of all this biomass in Europe. I'm just thinking of all the people that have overgrown all these hemp farms, and they've got surplus leaves and sort of what most would term as waste material, and they don't even have the money to extract from it, so they do end up just disposing of it or turning it into like a compost or something. But really, it has the most value, I guess.
This is the joke of it in a lot of ways, is post-drug, the sticks will be worth more than the flower because of things like graphene. Once we truly get our head around sort of using graphene as a supercapacitor, so we use layers of cannabis-derived graphene and you build them up in a lattice, and they make a better supercapacitor than lithium-ion cell batteries. So rather than sending kids down mines halfway around the world and then shipping it over and increasing a massive carbon footprint to then have these eco cars, we could be growing them, creating the composite body out of the cannabis fibrous material, mixing with things like soy and flax, which is what Henry Ford did, and then powering them with these cannabis supercapacitor batteries. You can even still make them hybrids with today's technology with a graphene supercapacitor battery and a bioethanol engine. So it could then run cannabis biofuels.
Would you consider that at your company, if you were eligible to say fully utilize every part of the product, would you consider running your companies with a combination of solar and graphene batteries?
Yeah, well, we're already at the point where we're using solar energy on our Italian farm.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Well, what we have is we actually bought a really unique location. It's like it was a supermarket before we moved in, and they built all the infrastructure for that solar energy. And we've added to it, and there are benefits too. So for anyone that's interested in the business side of growing cannabis, there are grants for onboarding green initiatives, and this is just one of them that you can do. I wonder if there's anything. Yeah, there's got to be. If you're the kind of, like, I would be interested in doing the graphene biofuels kind of opportunity, and to see if I can get rewarded for doing something like that, because it is going to cost money. I would look to see if there are research and development grants and things like that, so that it's not such a heavy cost burden.
There probably are a lot of academic institutions as well out there that would be very interested in doing so. Because obviously these are the institutions that typically look a lot further forward than politics, that look further forward than the limitations of legislation. They look at potential, they look at facts, they look at evidence. And the evidence and the fact is that cannabis as a multi-versatile resource is exponential, the growth on it at this point. Once we truly crack into understanding how to utilize this to store energy, I mean, there's then a fact that if you run salt water over graphene, it generates energy.
Yeah.
So this is something I wrote in a Weed World article like a couple of years ago, titled "How Cannabis Can Save the World," and I talked about the idea of creating a desalinization plant. So kind of like an oil rig that we just pull out into the ocean, we dump it there. It's built with cannabis graphene carbon nanotubes that are made of then graphene. So as the salt water is then funneled through it into the filtration system, it generates the energy for it. You attach solar, you attach wind, you attach tidal. We attach then some cannabis supercapacitor batteries to store all of this energy into a self-insulate site that then just down to a certain calculation would then pass a tipping point where it would generate enough of its own energy by providing clean water.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Is anyone doing that right now, or is that just a concept?
No, it's entirely just a concept. There are people playing with the idea of using graphene nanotubes and salt water to generate energy, but it's very much in its infancy. And the limitations around it are a lot of the high-end academics won't look at this because of the drug side of it. It's a murky, dirty, there's hippies and that over there. I don't want to deal with that.
Do you know Sorry, I was just going to sort of add to this sort of semi-creatively. Do you remember they did the... I should probably come up here. The solar-powered plane that was just constantly flying around the world. Do you remember that? It was just like fucking perpetually going, right? They should do that, your model, right, essentially, but have it constantly floating perpetually forward, and then those scientifically engineered caterpillars that eat plastic, put them on it and send it over to that big fuck off place that that small island. That small country that is basically an island, and it could just perpetually fucking start shifting the. Although, are we talking about here? Sorry, I'm getting a bit carried away. Are we talking about effectively changing the ocean from a salt water to a fresh water?
No. You'd have to then pump it back onto land, because I think it's something like 95 to 97% or something like that of the Earth's water is salt water that's available as water. The stuff that's frozen, is majority of it is fresh water, not salinated, but because of gravity in the water table, when it melts off wherever it's melting, it falls to the lowest point, which is salt water. So then as soon as it's in there, it's in a very expensive process to currently remove salt from it. But as we've seen in the past 6 months, water futures have been put onto indexes in a few stock exchanges around the world, so people can trade on the futures of water. That's a scary fucking sign. That means that they're starting to really get serious about commodifying it as a resource. So we lose the basic right of access to water. And then you think of, again, a company like Nestle, who we've obviously recently entered CBD, the deal that they've got in California means that they siphon off an ungodly amount of water and pay basically fuck all.
I know. Yeah. While
there's people in droughts there, and it's only going to get fucking worse as we see the increase of desertification because of deforestation and all our other activities, because we're refusing to then look at using cannabis. I mean, fuck, if we switched over, what was the calculation? If we switched over all toilet paper in the world to cannabis, you'd save something like 8 billion trees a year.
Wow.
It's ridiculous. It is fucking ridiculous. You think a cannabis plant, you could grow big industrial ass fucking really good fibrous hemp, and it would grow tight, compact, small areas. We could actually then have it so, because of its bioremediable properties, it would then take up heavier elements, but it wouldn't be a factor because it's not then getting combusted in the same way. Yeah, it's been applied to a sensitive area, but there's processes we could do to deal with a lot of that. So you can have the benefit of every time you wipe your ass, you're making the world a better place.
Yeah. And it's almost 1-to-1, isn't it? It's like, how many people are there in the world?
It's like 7 point something billion people at the minute.
Jesus. Well, like a lot of people.
8 billion.
Oh, we might be past. I was going to say, people might not realize how close the industry is to actually getting there. Like, I feel like industrial hemp we're like industrializing it even more. So there are genetics out there that are designed to be harvested with specific like combines. So the genetics have been grown so that it reaches a certain height and it's convenient for certain machines to come in and automate the harvesting process. And we've got a few of those. We've got like a CBG strain that's designed for sort of like a mass scale harvest. And I'm sure that's kind of like, that's probably the most viable genetic that we have for something like graphene extraction, because it's really stalk heavy. It's really not such a big flowering plant. Certainly doesn't have a lot of leaves.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, we've seen, I was in, I'm not going to name them, but I was in one of my friend's grow tents the other day, and he's got this freak of a genetic, and it's just, it came out of, I think, a 5-pack of others. All of them came out, as they always do, with the slight variance in their genetics and their expressions. But this thing came out with, when the leaves just do that, and they've got wrinkles and they furl and they unfold and they're just monstrous, but they never become the pointed, traditional, jagged shape of a cannabis leaf. The buds look like cauliflower, tiny little, holding on little cauliflower heads on this, and it's just weird as hell. But the reason that I bring that up is just as a visual sort of point that happens in the variance of a somewhat stabilized breeding program. once we really start to go, okay, grab that genetic, grab this genetic, we need to breed and move. I mean, there's already out there, there's companies working on flowerless cannabis. There are ones that are working on only terpene cannabis, and there are ones that are working on only flavonoid cannabis.
We have a genetic that's literally zero cannabinoids. It's just pure terps. You know, I was wondering if that flower would be UK legal, but it's crazy that it wouldn't be.
Under the license, unfortunately, it's illegal to cultivate any cultivar of Cannabis sativa L as a genus. Anything that falls into cannabis without permission from the fucking Home Office. And again, that's one of the things that I think holds back innovation most. Because there are some unbelievable breeders here in the UK. Some of the people who've created brands that have already been marketing themselves, that have been on the scene for a long time, that attend all of the events, that have built brand reputation. Those individuals, if they're given the opportunity to really expand and work, I think could provide so much to the legal industry. But because they're ostracized and criminalized, they're at war. So I was talking to Phil Monk earlier today, and he described it eloquently earlier as that the position that unfortunately I sit in and that he sits in is we're on the battleground because we haven't gone to a legal route. We haven't created a business or gone to have to do it the proper way, as it were. We've left ourselves on the front line. So although innovation is occurring within industry, we're not really within that industry. And I think that there's still a lot of the people that could change that industry for the better of everybody that are marginalized and left on the battleground. So they are one knock on the door away from losing their liberty. Whereas if they were on the other side of the fence, if somebody gave them that special little piece of paper, they'd be earning 100 grand for the things they know. They're probably earning more than that now on the street, but they're dealing with a criminal world. They're having
pro rata. Do you know what I mean? Because of the risk.
Yeah. But again, so I feel that once those individuals and that knowledge base is allowed to come in, and we can expand that, so we can go from breeding and farming and then come down from lab engineered stuff. Because I don't know if you saw a few weeks ago, there was 2 genetic companies in California, in America. One of them is in California. I can't remember off the top of my head where the second one was from, but they were given global proprietary right to license the auto-flowering traits of cannabis.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah. So what these guys are basically doing is they say they have a way to manipulate any genetic, any cultivar, and provide with it a day neutral cycle. So instead of it needing to work from 1812 down to 1212, it triggers itself, the hormone production switches, and it goes into flower. Rather than needing that process, they can take that genetic, auto flower it. I'm air quoting for people that can't hear that. I don't know what the sound of air quotes would be anyway. But so then they then license it back to the person that provided them the genetics. You give them your genetics, they engineer them, and then they license them back to you. So therefore, they own your genetics.
The thing is, I've heard that people I know that this isn't even new technology. It's not I think it's a chemical reaction, isn't it? I can't remember. I know that, there's the reaction with silver nitrate to feminize seeds. I'm wondering if it's something similar to that, to manipulate a genetic. And it feels a bit unfair. They've been given rights to that, to be honest.
But I think what they've done is they'll have a proprietary technology. Their manipulation process, whether it be through chemical alteration or reaction, or whether it be through some crisper form of doing it, if you know what I mean. Well, I mean, this technology's out there, and you've got to then think of what could be benefited by industry being able to take over the market like that. If somebody could manipulate and create the perfect cultivar, whatever that is, or whatever is thought to be that, if somebody creates the Coca-Cola of cannabis, one thing that is recognized and desired everywhere,
Stardog.
Well, but that's the beautiful thing of cannabis. Unless we engineer it, unless they do something to manipulate and hold it, it will variant.
Yeah,
as you found as a hemp farmer, you plant hemp at 0.15. If you leave it there for a few cycles with stress and to genetic fade, it would then have a much higher THC count.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a problem that most farms will have, and they need to tend to their fields post-harvest to make sure that they don't run that risk. Yeah,
which is a shame, really, because again, if people could just grow, if it was a case of literally I could have a few plants here, people could then have a lot. we could grow on any scale. If it was literally allowed on that, like that, I think that would give us all that first opportunity to really get ahead on this. Whereas at the minute, it's looking like the big boys, the really, really big boys, are just going to own all of this.
Yeah.
They're already getting the patents. They've already secured technology. I mean, the other side of this is then in the West, we're still so fucking slow. In China, you can face the death penalty for cannabis, right? As it currently stands. I found out the other day, China's basically the only country in the world where it's illegal to be high on cannabis. Look at the consumption of
the
cannabis.
actual consumption is
actual consumption, not just possession. You being stoned is a criminal offense, yeah. But out of the over 600 patents for technology and derivables from hemp, half of them are owned by China. Half of them. You think of the amount of land that they've got, you think of the amount of export that they already have as an industry. They are moving fast and thick with this. As soon as they can get their fucking their heads around the quantum computing and whatnot, cannabis graphene can make quantum computing batteries. So again, we don't need the lithium. We don't need these other very rare minerals that would then limit access to this technology.
It's almost like somebody sat down and went, "Ooh, I wonder if there's any sort of restriction that we can put on the natural reproductive cycle of cannabis in order to fully tunnel like exuberant costs for the farmers that actually want to fucking grow it." Do you know what I mean? Do you know, oh, what? You cannot just leave it go over. They're gonna have to fucking pay for some sort of process to come in and sort that shit out. Where does that money go? Who gets that money? Do you know what I mean? That's do you know what I mean? Yeah. Anyway,
there's so many ways, so many angles for people to come in and create premiums essentially and barriers for people to enter the industry. I think we're at that point where people are creating a lot of hurdles rather than working in a way to move the industry quickly, which is really what we need. We need to create access and open up the market because, right, especially for the UK, we've got such a limited ability in what we can legally do here as just a normal person. Obviously, if you're a large institution and you got quite good financial backing, you could pick up a THC license and you could start to develop a range and probably plug it into one of the clinics that have opened up for cannabis prescriptions. But
that's exactly it. As you said, it's a lot of the people who have got through first have slammed the door in the face of those behind, but they have got there because of everybody else who didn't get through that door. Unfortunately, a lot of the people who hold the licenses today, a lot of the people who are involved in the industry are there because of the people who fell on the battleground. The war is still going on. My door could still go at any time. Any one of us as consumers could still be targeted. We could still be stopped because of the way we smell on the street, which could then lead to a search of our pockets, which then goes, oh, there's some weed here and some money. Your house key, let's go look at your house. Then we go through your social media and whatever, or the signs of dealing or whatever, or this. You can destroy your life very quickly over something so small. Yet we then see things like Wales Online publishing raid after raid after raid story, then a very weird story going, meet the middle class people growing their own cannabis at home.
Yeah.
It's part of the gentrifying, the whitewashing, the classism. It's the transition of the traditional prohibition model to this prohibition 2.0, where the people that then shat on us and stigmatized us and went, hey, you lower class druggies, you just no, inherit and take the industry without then recompensing the people who gave it to them. We have stood for decades controlling supply, cultivating in the face of these raids. We have had social consumption. We've had these events. We've organized and had demonstrations. We've had protests. We've created campaigns, and we've championed and helped each other and developed. I mean, most of sort of the recognition of medical cannabis, yes, was pushed over the line by a handful of people with a very polished media campaign, but it got there because of everybody speaking up and telling their story. All of a sudden, people feeling heard, feeling safe to do so, and being able to go, I consume cannabis, it helps with X, Y, and Z. We're now approaching the 3 years down the line since the legalization of medical cannabis in this country. And as you say, we are still so vastly restricted.
Yeah, I'm just surprised. I never thought that flower would ever be one of the prescribable products. And that to me was a big step forward, even though, as we know, it's not that accessible.
Yeah, but I mean, it's under the legislation, it's illegal to smoke that flower. If you roll that into a joint and you smoke it, that's still Schedule 1 cannabis, not Schedule 2 medical cannabis. medical cannabis cannot, again, I'm air quoting there, medical cannabis cannot be combusted. It can only be vaporized or made into a tincture or an oil or an edible.
Is that right? If you get a
correct.
if you get a prescription from whatever fucking service, you cannot just like whip out a fucking paper.
Yes. That's not medical according to them. Even though we know that combustion, there is an argument still, but combustion and vaporization are the highest bioavailability for the access of cannabis. As Marty was saying before, the onset is 60 to 90 seconds. So you like that shit, you boom. Even with so herbal vaporizer is arguable to get you to the same sort of place. I'm sorry, there are some incredible products on the market, but I have yet to find a herbal vaporizer where I will get cessation. I will get that feeling, satiety, sorry. I will get that feeling of, oh, that's enough. Do you know what I mean? A joint, I can power 3 fast talks in and go, oh. You know what I mean? And it's just there. And it's just
true.
there.
That is true. You can get blitzkrieg using fucking vaporization, as I sort of mentioned on the live. I think the percentages are fucking, I don't know, almost tenfold, you know, from smoking a joint, how much actual cannabinoids you get into your system versus, you know, having a vape. Fucking hell, yes.
Well, I wonder what happens the day someone overpowers their vape and it accidentally combusts and, you know, lands them in a bunch of trouble because it stinks out.
Exactly. There's your argument. So where is then what qualifies as combustion? Is combustion the act of physically lighting it on fire, or is it heating it to a point where the material itself burns? Because we've all seen when you vape too hard. I mean, even I've got this volcano, so I mean, it's all just shot on the technology. I do still enjoy it, but it's
different.
For me, but it'll never. Unfortunately, I think I've discussed this on the podcast, but I'm addicted to combustion. I started smoking tobacco when I was like 8. I had a deal with my mother when I was about 9.5 that I'd stop stealing money off her if she bought us 10 lamb and butter every other day. And that got me through. And I kind of had that problematic relationship with combustion since. Then when I moved on to like rolling cigarettes and then smoking my own sort of weed when I was like 14 plus, it's always been the ritual. It's been the art of getting the stuff together. And even when I've quit tobacco, and it's still the skin, it's the roach, it's the grind, it's that action and that art, and then passing it around. It feels tribal. Do you know what I mean? It feels social, really primal.
It's, you know what I mean? It's bringing everything together, which is, ritual is the right word for it, I think. But you're right. I mean, obviously, vaporization is healthier. And if I'm honest, in an ideal situation, for those that would be able, I'd imagine that every form of consumption would be used as a mixture. Do you know what I mean? People would have it in their cooking. People would, you know, I don't feel like smoking because I'm, you know, XYZ reason or whatever. So you'll have a small bit of the vapor, and then you might sit down, watch a film, roll a big fucking fatty. Do you know what I mean?
It's use, I suppose, as well. So if you roll a big fatty and you smoke it, that's gonna smell big pluming clouds. Yeah. You hit in a little dab pen somewhere on the sly. It's portable. No one can really see you doing it. The smell is minimal, and it often just smells heavily of terps, rather than the festival smell of weed, if you know what I mean. That generic smell of weed, the non-terpene smell of just cannabis everywhere. You just walk down the street like, oh, and it just hits you first, then maybe an aftertone of whatever the actual cultivar was. But that just generic sort of smell of weed, gets you in a lot of fucking trouble. So I suppose that allows you to consume in different ways. So you wouldn't then take an edible and go out on your day, but then actually maybe you would, depending on how your tolerance is or whatever.
Choice, man. No,
well, exactly that. But then what it does with the limitation of saying that you can't combust your medical cannabis means that if you want to combust your cannabis to get the therapeutic benefits of it, you can't be using that as medicine. So if that's the case, all they're doing is shooting themselves in the foot. Well, this is why I don't believe in the medical paradigm. I'm not a medical user. I qualify under a few conditions. I would be able to get a prescription. I currently can't afford to pay one, nor if I was in a position would I pay for one, because it feels to me disingenuous that I could buy protection and leave the people that I have stood to represent. Even if I hadn't have done what I've done for the past 5 years, I still don't think in my heart of hearts that I would get a prescription, because it feels it feels a betrayal in some ways. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it has to be contextual, mate. I mean, if you were in fucking utter desperation, right, at the end of your fucking tether, I mean, really, then nobody should hold it against you if you were to go and do that. I mean, that's bullshit. Do you know that kind of way?
Okay. Well, yeah, I'd never begrudge anybody doing that. That's not what I'm saying. So what I just mean is that
even you, I mean, like, do you know what I mean? You wouldn't have to. Any sort of subliminal feeling in that manner is nonsense. I mean, sorry.
The options available to most people are not good, and definitely. I get why you're not getting the medical prescription, I guess, is to not support whilst it's our only option outside of illegal consumption, it's not the right option. It's not, I didn't know that you can combust the flower that you get prescribed. I mean, we're adults.
But if we were adults, then we wouldn't be having this conversation at all, because we would be allowed all drugs. They would be regulated to be the safest, purest, most trackable, traceable product, so that if somebody died of an ecstasy pill, you'd be able to find the manufacturer, go through, find the assembly worker, find the chemist, find the individual, and go, what the fuck did you do? Check the logs. Oh my God, we put in far too much of one compound and it did this. Boom, the lawsuit, blah, etc. Accountability. Somebody goes to jail.
Yeah,
that needs to exist. It could exist across the fucking board. But if we tiptoe and go down this bloody route of medicinalizing everything, look, the first ketamine clinic has just opened in the UK. We've now got the FDA in America, the Food and Drug Authority. They have allowed in the past, got to be 2 years now, actually, a ketamine nasal spray called esketamine that's produced by Johnson & Johnson. They've allowed a cocaine nasal spray. I can't remember the company that makes it, but it's called Numbrino, which is a hell of a name for it. They've obviously approved Epidiolex. They then went further to deschedule Epidiolex in America. And they've just given preliminary approval for a small trial with MDMA for MAPS. It was part with the Veterans Association in America. So all at the same time, if I were to go and take a pill at a rave, I'm a criminal. If I would then go take it in their context of a medical or whatever, and went with a few mates and we're going to go have a quiet fire in the woods and we're all going to get proper tribal and like cuddly and fucking have a good chat and really put the world to rights and shit. No, that still is criminalized. Same with ketamine. I've had mates that have had serious dependency issues with ketamine because of its huge potential as an antidepressant. But the setting and the access of it and the culture that comes with it can be quite problematic for people. But it's problematic because of the stigma around it. So if I then think of we had 2 deaths of Boomtown one year. So Boomtown was a festival in the UK in Winchester that I used to frequent every year. And then they had a big problem with ketamine one year. The next year, it was like all of the other drug consumers were against the ketamine consumers. They were like, you're giving us a bad name. You're letting down the team. You know, a dirty druggie, with people with literally rings of coke still hanging from the fucking thing, smoking like a 20 box of cigarettes and fucking down in the 3-liter bottle of cider. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that sort of stigma is then going to be furtherly created by this pharmaceuticalization of these compounds. And so that, in my opinion, is one of the reasons why I kind of fight against this. I don't think I would have some of the revelatory experiences I have had on, say, combinations of LSD and DMT in a clinical setting. I understand that they've built it to the best that they can, but the profound comes from the mysterious, in my opinion, and the mysterious is not to be found in a gentrified, homogenized, cleaned out, sanitized area. It's in the world. Do you know what I mean? I feel most alive and get the most benefit from taking antigenic substances. Yeah, when I am barefoot in the woods, I have built a fire. I have gone, right, I'm going to go blow my consciousness open, and I'm going to accept the world for what it is. I'm going to ask the questions I seek to ask of the universe, and then try to integrate the lessons and the knowledge that I've acquired from that experience into my life. Whereas I know that they tried to have integration as part of the therapies within these clinics and whatever. I still, maybe it is just my own prejudice or whatever, so I don't hold it against the individuals involved. I have quite a lot of respect, actually, for some of the doctors and clinicians involved in it. But I still just feel that it's disingenuous that they're allowed to medicinalize while we still go to jail. Yeah.
I think that kind of the supervised trials, they work well for someone that's not got any experience with the supplement in question. You've obviously got a lot of experience and you know exactly what you're doing, but maybe like someone that's just started to look at these things because they're legal just might not know where to start, and that clinic might be, or that supervised opportunity is the best first way, and then obviously with a bit of experience, they can do it their own way, because everyone is a bit different. Like I personally wouldn't want to do anything like that in a supervised environment. I feel anxious like with strangers usually. So
it has an inherent anxiety attached to it for quite a number of people, I'd imagine, me included.
Yeah,
you know, that kind of way. It'd be like,
yeah. Plus, also like I wouldn't be able to. You want to focus on yourself, I assume, and I just feel like there'd be too many distractions in that environment. Personally, that's just why I wouldn't want to.
Yeah. But I think, as you said, though, for individuals that haven't, I have grown up and had quite an unusual life. But for people that haven't exactly had that entry point, it can be so profound and exceptionally life-changing. You know, like the LSD trials that were run at various universities and institutions around the world from the 50s through to the mid-70s. Some of the people that took part in that said it was one of the top 5 most profound experiences of their lives. Then they've had like kids, marriage, etc. You know, so it's Bill Gates and other people said that LSD experiences were one of the most important and crucial turning points in their development as a person, for fuck's sake. So I think that, the more access we can have is a good thing. And a lot of the trials are smart to this because they're only looking for people that have never had experience. So, I mean, I've probably had 100 plus DMT experiences. So me going to a clinic and them expecting me to have an incredibly overly cartoonish sort of reaction to it it just wouldn't kind of happen. So they want that surprise element, the uncontrollable. They almost don't want the data of what happens when people know how to use them. They want the extreme data to then be able to go, okay, this is how we control it, and we put it into our control. When actually most of the cultures of drugs look after themselves, except for things like, say, unfortunately, heroin users, often because of the extreme stigma and the rate of enforcement by the police. That means if you're using with a few people and somebody overdoses, you are in a horrible way kind of better off leaving that person, because you would get caught up with them and that would then destroy your life with it. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm not justifying that actions, but what I'm saying is that
you're more likely
you are more likely to leave them. And that happens far too often. Then people end up in dodgy situations. Whereas then with drugs that have less consequences or less perceived consequences, but are in the same classification, look at ecstasy at festivals. Very few people abandon their mates when they've taken pills or whatever. They have this sense of obligation and care and duty, and they're not then with them, even if they themselves are consuming the same substance. There isn't that internalized sort of stigma around the culture, and the culture then titrates it. So I remember events where like people are buying pills and that, and the dealers are like, only take them in halves. You get harm reduction advice from your dealer, and you do it the same. So you get around 4 or 5 o'clock back in the days when you get like 5 pills for a tenner. So you double drop, and then you'd half one with a mate at like 4 or 5 in the morning. You know what I mean? If you were still out in a rave going somewhere. And so that, even those actions, you were controlling each other. You were looking out for each other.
Oh yeah. Now the big thing, I haven't been out of university for that long, less than 10 years. And the most people that are experimenting have a test kit, which I'm sure is a difference. And, over the past 20 years, I assume that people 20 years ago probably weren't able to just test their drugs at home, but now they can. And it shows that people aren't just like how many people might call them like druggies. We're not just looking to get smacked, looking to get legitimately what we're looking for. And it's just that access to quality and traceability and everything, kind of like what the CBD market is starting to get. And even with something that's not psychoactive like CBD, you can see that there's so much room to do it wrong. There needs to be oversight. There needs to be some kind of regulation. Obviously, not the one that seems to be forming, but these things
it never fucking is, though, is it?
Yeah.
You're right, though. I mean, there are No, I'm not going to fuck this up. Sedation-like qualities to overuse of CBD, but other cannabinoids as well, kind of a thing. So, go ahead, mate. Go on. I know you're fucking chomping at the bit to get in there.
I can't. It's one of the things I kind of made a decision a few weeks ago to be like, I'm calling this whenever I see it. Unfortunately, CBD is not non-psychoactive.
Didn't say that.
It's
just it was sedative. Fuck you.
No, so Marty said it sort of before, but it's psychoactive, just not in the same way. And I make the same mistake all the time as well, because it's become such a common phraseology. It's something we say within the industry, within the community, within talking about sort of cannabis. It's just not euphoric inducing in the same way as THC is. So it doesn't give what to some people is that relief and that wonderful oof, but to others can be quite a frightening experience. Whereas CBD will then have more of it's a physiological sort of effect, but we know that it affects serotonin. It affects, I think it's 25 of the minor neural pathways in the brain. And again, if you then look at the definition of what a psychoactive drug is, it still fits that kind of criteria. But that being said, yeah, it's about as benign as we can get as a component and derivative from cannabis. And as we can't get that right, how the hell do we get to a point where we can allow, shatter to be regulated in the UK? Because you've already seen it now. The kickback in Washington State, which was one of the first US states to go first with Colorado, they voted late to 2012 to allow this. They're now getting a whole skunk reefer madness fucking bullshit coming, and they're talking about trying to cap concentrates at 30%.
Whoa. How do you even get concentrates at 30%?
this is it. And again, so who's that going to benefit? Because the industry has learned how to create butane and non-solvent extracts to certain grades and bespoke because of the nature of the plant and what it will achieve.
Yeah.
The only way to then get it to be low is to produce it and then to strip it back, is to put in some proprietary process that then means that, we hold the license to create that technology. You can't supply your product to the market unless you go through us.
You know what will happen, by the way? People will start cutting that shatter. What's happened in the EU with CBD hash, which is basically most of the EU states they have 0.2% THC limits, and everyone is trying to get in on the hashes and the flowers. So what's happening is people are pressing pollen, making like a pollen-based hash, and the THC is over to 0.2%. So in order to bring it back down, they'll find all kind of fillers, all kind of cutters to lower that THC limit. And people don't know. Like, you could Google this and people don't know about it. It's what typically happens. It's very rare to have CBD hashes in the EU that are uncut. There are some, and they typically come from CBG dominant strains, because those literally can have 0% THC. But I suspect the same will happen, because they've done that and people have their processes in America lined up for high THC shatter. I spoke with someone that was, I was trying to speak with people in the industry about how to possibly decrease the THC in our solventless extract, which was coming up over the 0.2 limit. And people were telling me that common practice in the EU is to mix beeswax in with your rosin to lower the THC, and you have the same consistency. Obviously, I'm not going to do that, but that just tells you a little bit about how people feel forced into. They feel, they'll say that they feel forced.
That's fucking crazy. All the while, right? Where you can get, Brewdog. Have you heard of Brewdog?
Yeah, I know them. Yeah.
Brewdog, decent beer company, like very, very tasty stuff.
Very well funded through Crowdcube.
I don't know what that means, but
no, it's just crowdfunding. They did the whole crowdfunding.
So I think I've met James. I think I've met James. He's a nice lad. I used to work in one of the flagship stores in London. They used to fucking launch the beers there. Let's put it that way. Right, I'm trying to look for fancy words. It was one of those places that was well renowned enough. And I remember they had this thing called Tactical Nuclear Penguin, which was which was a beer, right? But it came in a paper bag, obviously a bottle or whatever, and it's I think it was around 32% alcohol. Think about that. A beer that had 32%, right? And it wasn't bad. It was exactly what you'd expect, kind of a thing. It wasn't my my type, you know, that kind of thing. It was more of a sort of a novelty, right? But here, then it became this sort of competitive thing with a German company in order to break the world record of what is the highest ABV that you can get in a beer, right? And I think the following one that they had was called Sink the Bismarck, and that came in around about the early 40-ish% mark, and I tried a small bit of that. Not bad. It sort of burnt your chest as it went down like a shot of whiskey or whatever.
Yeah,
it's like you'd have this taste of beer like for hours afterwards.
Oh.
But then a German company came back and they developed a process of freezing some part of the process where it forced the alcohol content to actually go higher than it was normally able to actually do, you know. And the German company came back anyway, and they beat it. And then fucking Brewdog came back and they had one called The End of History, and it came in a stuffed stoat, right? I think it was like 800 fucking pounds a bottle or 600 pounds a bottle or something like that. And it was like 4 of them. And 3 of them, I think 2 or 3 of them were sold on the fucking night. But we had to basically restrict it. And I had to have arguments with people over the bar, right? You were not allowed to buy this by yourself. Imagine me giving you a bottle of Bud, that fucking size, of 40, to 50 odd % fucking beer, and then you necking that shit like it's a fucking Bud or whatever, you know, that kind of way. So the restriction was you had to be. Have you got them up there?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
57.8%.
57.
Whoa.
I had that one too. The owner fucking popped it open and spread it around the bar. It was tasty, really tasty, but necessary. not like.
No. This is a newer one.
There's another one.
This is called Strength in Numbers. It was launched in September 2020.
Wow.
Over a decade ago, we entered an international ABV race against German brewery. I cannot pronounce that, to brew the world's strongest beer. The back and forth that ensued became the stuff of beer legend. In September 2020, another chapter in this epic saga was written. This time, it's one of our camarades? I don't know what that word is either. Camaradie.
Camera are a beer company, I think.
Well, there you go. As we joined forces with the name that I couldn't pronounce before for the ultimate collaboration.
Oh, they joined forces. That's fucking cool.
Strength in Numbers is a 57.8% beer that reaches the colossal ABV through the traditional Eisenbach method, which means freezing the beer and removing chunks of ice water so that you're left with the concentrated high ABV liquid. The beer also features a blend of Brewdog's own Death or Glory, an ice-distilled Belgian golden ale that's been sitting in a whiskey casks for 10 years. Only a small number of 40 milliliter bottles will be available, which disappeared into the hands of a lucky few.
See, I don't talk shit all the time. I don't talk shit. I can see Marty over there fucking internalizing, going, they're fucking allowed to do this, and I'm fuck's sake.
Well, yeah, you think about it. A couple of them. I'll knock you on your fucking arse. I mean,
a couple of them, that much of that will knock you clean on your arse.
Well, yeah, but my point stands if what we consider to be a distribution. So if alcohol, right, if it was as unregulated as heroin supply, so when you went, oh, I'll have a pint, mate, cheers, and you were drinking it and you didn't know if it was a Budweiser or a fucking whatever the hell that was called, Strength in Numbers, you can see how people end up in trouble.
That's it, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So if they then go out and have 2 pints of it and it's fucking just all over the goddamn place, the body is literally on the verge of alcohol poisoning because they've had 2 fucking pints of the thing, you know what I mean? Or someone that's had 2 Buds. I mean, obviously everyone has a tolerance as well.
Exactly.
So that varies into it. So this is why there has to be the spectrum of products. The same needs to be true with cannabis.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think that one of the biggest differences is that cannabis's lethal quantity is just so much smaller than alcohol. Why the hell are we seeing some legislation out there trying to reduce the percentage of THC permissible, where they're not even talking about alcohol.
It's skunk psychosis. This is starting to build in the American lobby, and it's because they've seen this tactic work in the UK. GW have employed this tactic for a very long time. So while they were cultivating a strain and a variant of skunk number 1, they were allowing stories and helping stories be perpetuated in papers in the UK talking about skunk psychosis. Do you know what I mean? It's ridiculous. They've now exported this to America. It's slowly gaining ground in Canada as well. And once it does, it will be if it's part of American federal legalization, that means it becomes part of the narrative for the world.
Yeah.
So when the UN sets its policy, they're going, it causes psychosis and schizophrenia, it causes this, it causes that, so we need to keep it in this remit. When actually, if you look at the medical cannabis industrial complex around the world, psychiatry is one of the ones that's pushing this forward most. Because they're looking at it, all of a sudden they're going, oh, it might be in medicine. So they're suddenly changing the way they're looking at all of their cases of people that consume cannabis or have interacted with drugs and going, we've been looking the wrong fucking way. Drugs didn't do this. They had a thing and they're using the drugs to treat themselves. Do you know what I mean? Once you end the narrative of in this country, in the UK right now, all drug use is abuse. That's what they define it as. If you get caught misusing drugs, it's because you're using them. That's how fucked it is. And it's not, I don't know anyone that misuses weed. The only way I think to misuse weed is to try and light the fucking thing in my ear. Do you know what I mean? Because even if I shoved it up my arse, I'd have a beneficial effect.
Yeah, so that's proven. That's proven.
Well, yeah, but this is the point of it, though. It's so versatile that how the hell can you misuse cannabis?
I know.
I wonder, right? 3 of us lovely young boys here, chaps, men, whatever the fuck you want to fucking use, right? One of the biggest fucking killers of men is prostate cancer. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Oh, right? You're right.
So if fucking you could have super concentrated super feco up your back, up your jacksie or whatever, right? I wonder what kind of direct application. I wonder what direct application would yield in that regard. Do you know what I mean?
One of the first customers I had in my journey in CBD industry, he had pancreatic cancer, and before coming to see me, he was solely buying from this guy that he would meet at the pub, and he'd get a kind of like an extract, and then he'd build his own suppositories, and that's how he would take his CBD. He'd read that bringing it close to the prostate would be to the pancreas, following from the prostate talk. But yeah, then he started to do it with CBD as well. So he'd build these these suppositories that were 50-50. And actually, so he was given something like 6 months, and that took him on for maybe 2 years.
Awesome.
And then he actually did really well. Can't remember the terminology that was being used, but his tumor was shrinking and he was getting quite excited about everything, and he actually stopped taking the treatment. And he stopped taking the treatment, started to take the medicine his doctor was recommending, because he was starting to feel quite optimistic, I think. So he started to listen to what his doctor was more confidently suggesting, and unfortunately it came back, and really the cancer was spreading all over. And I had you remember the shop that I had in Covent Garden in
man.
He came over to that, and he met Callie, and Callie suggested some really good water soluble THC for him, said that would be a good option. And unfortunately he didn't make it past April, but it was working while he was taking it. I would see him very regularly, and he was the one saying this stuff is the only thing that's helping me at the moment, and he was taking it as a suppository. And this guy as well, just to give an idea of like the profile, this is someone that is like the great grandson of the guy that created the Boy Scouts in the UK. He's a very classic British man, by all accounts, one of these kinds of people that a lot of conservative types would not assume would take cannabis.
I see, right.
Yeah, but again, it speaks to something I've heard of time and time again. Just to go back to what you spoke of before, Mark, 9,000 men a year die from prostate cancer in England.
That's
9,000.
Fucking crazy.
More than 325,000 men are currently living with. Wait, I can't read that. Why have they've cut it up horribly on that sentence? every hour, one man dies from prostate cancer in England.
Oof.
It's rough.
Yeah. So basically, what it is it's the closer you can get fecal to the site of a tumor, the better. Basically, really is what we're sort of seeing. But yeah, I've heard other cases of this where people have been going well and then they've gone to, I suppose we could call traditional medicine, accepted Western medicine as it is, and then they've had shit fucking problems. And then I've had other cases. I mean, we were talking earlier about a potential future. Actually, we'll leave that. I'll not spoil that one yet. But there are people that have obviously then just gone on and used cannabis themselves to treat their own ailments and have literally gone from you're dead to there's nothing there. Do you know what I mean? That is a story time and time again with people. And then the smarter thing is to then maintain a maintenance dose. But the other thing that's absent from this conversation is what caused that cancer in the first place. It's all well and good treating it. What in your lifestyle, what in your habit, what in your genetics, what is perpetuating your exposure to carcinogens, you know?
No, you're right. You're right. I mean, we mentioned this with Mike Barnes, didn't we? I mean, it's the attitude is definitely one of, here's the solution that will fucking solve your surface problem, but there isn't any root fucking analysis. There never is. Do you know that kind of way? Unfortunately, that's not the fucking society that we live in. Also, Marti's here. Hi, Marti. I feel like we've talked at you for a while, so maybe we should talk. I have a question for you. What is your favorite product that you make?
Oh, my dab pens. These are definitely my daily drivers. Is there a
flavor or something? Or
this particular one is straw nana. You can kind of see the little banana on the pen.
Yeah.
We've got also the forbidden fruit. This is a good one. I just ran out today though, so I'm just using straw nana. I like rosin, like solventless. I got a bit of rosin that can't really be selling in the UK, but I'm just getting through it. But to be honest, I like CBD and THC. Just during the day, I find that CBD helps me with my work and everything, and then I can stop working and then consider sparking one up.
Yeah.
But I do vape a lot though. I gotta say, like vaping is my normal way to consume. I love a joint. Like the smell of burning cannabis is very nostalgic for me. And when I smell that outside, especially if I'm like near a sesh, I can't deny a few puffs from a joint. But when I'm at home, I find it quite easy to just focus on vaping and then collect all that AVB and do something with it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's an important thing. A lot of people who don't know what AVB is, it's already vaped bud. And because of the...
It's not the former Tottenham manager or Chelsea manager.
That's a reference that went right over my fucking head right there. But yeah, it's an incredibly versatile sort of product. You can then create it into sort of butters. A lot of people make them into edibles, and it's quite often incredibly high in CBN because of the oxidation process, and it's fully carboxylated the THCA to THC, which then obviously is that oxidates through to CBN. And yeah, some people really quite enjoy the flavor as well of AVB. It's quite it's an acquired taste, but some people do genuinely do enjoy it. And again, it shows the versatility of cannabis, that we can truly use every single component and part of this. If we were unrestricted by legislation, there's no waste. There's everything would then either go down to ash or to an end biological waste product in terms of your consumption, so it comes out of you via waste. Do you know what I mean?
There's so many different kind of strains that we could be growing. One of the things that bothers me quite a lot is that we've got a lot of varieties of poppy, for example, that we can grow in the UK legally, and it can be harvested. But obviously there are some types of poppy seeds that we shouldn't be growing, or not shouldn't, we cannot be growing because they can create psychoactive products. With hemp, we were talking about genetics out there that literally have zero cannabinoids. They could just be grown for terps, and they could really be part of like other industries, not just the cannabis industry. Like those terps can go into cleaning products or into pharmaceuticals that use specific terpenes. And the same can be said for other minor cannabinoids that don't pose any psychoactivity, like CBG. It's that strain, there are genetics of CBD that have 0% THC. All they have is CBG. But the problem is that if we were to grow that here in the UK, we wouldn't be able to extract from the part that's most dense in cannabinoids, so which is the flower. And
yeah,
literally,
it's a joke that really, when you think about it, is that the only way you'd be able to do that, to extract from the flowers, regardless of the cannabinoid content, is to have a dangerous drugs license, is to have that high THC cultivation license, which is crazy because you're not trying to cultivate for high cannabinoid content. You were saying before about the diverse uses of terpenes as well. I remember when I was in Toronto, speaking to a few people out there that were in research and development for using cannabis terpenes to replace sweeteners.
That's interesting. I've never heard of that. I know that you can use terps you can synthesize other drugs out of terpenes, like the piperine, the terpene in black pepper, I believe. Yeah. Also, I can't. Yeah, I think it's a
supplement as well.
You can create MDMA out of it using I can't remember what the chemical reaction is.
I'm gonna make a note to contact our good friend Callie Seaman on this one. It's nice knowing a chemist. No, but yeah, but it just shows the versatility of compounds and creativity, so that if they choose to continue to criminalize and create these arbitrary gateways, people are just going to continue to fucking find novel ways to get around this. I think of that. What the hell was the guy's name? There's a famous dude. He was a chemist and he was in Israel. And he was basically playing a game against the world. He synthesized hundreds, if not 1,000+ chemicals. And every time he put out like mephedrone and all that shit. And then every time he got banned in a place, he'd go back to the lab and go, right, we'll just move the carbon here, oxygen here, boom, send it back out again. But he tested all of his drugs on himself first. So he would make it, test it, and I'd be like, not putting that one out. And then, you know what I mean? So there are people like that are going to continue to do it because we have a right, a sovereign right, by being born and conscious and sentient, to fuck with our consciousness. It's the reason kids spin around to get dizzy. You know what I mean? It's the reason we eat too much sometimes. It's the reason that we amplify our emotions through activity, is we're exploring the confines of what it is to experience and to be alive. And so to deny ourselves the opportunity to shortcut to unbelievable horizons through chemical interactions and then through social consumption of these substances, create bonds that last lifetimes. I think that is one of the greatest tragedies of being alive in the 21st century.
Yeah, I reckon that the real aim for prohibition is to lock down astral projection, because it only works if you're fucked off your face.
I just want to go to a quick hot take sidebar here. So what did I watch earlier? Something was on YouTube just when I'm working at the minute. YouTube is on in the background, it goes round and round. And there's something about silent Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard. And what you just said there, that could work. We could write a Scientology style thing out of this, that actually there are these powerful beings in the world and they deny you access to these spiritual realms of enlightenment by stopping you from taking these gateway substances.
Have you watched Hilda?
No.
Neither of you have watched Hilda.
No.
Get on that, right? It's the most. It's very sweet, really sort of adventure time for a female audience, right? Well, I fucking love it. Every part of the artistic implementation, the music, I think all the music is done by Grimes, and fucking nailed it.
Cool.
Anyway, there's a creature in that lives in the in-between spaces. So like, the idea is like in between your table and the wall, you know, there's like a portal that they can transport, it can go through, and it pop out somewhere else that's, you know, on the other side of the fucking world or whatever. Anyway, good TV show. That. No, you think about it, right? So you there's some fucking mad shit going on in society or whatever, and the only way to actually fucking get anywhere is to get into this interdimensional space. See, Neil likes it, man, and it's by a perfectly it's done by a perfectly pharmaceuticalized concoction of all of these like drugs. Yeah, I didn't want to use drugs there because it felt like, you know, there's a negative connotation that went with it. But you know, that could be it's almost like a super sci-fi version of Limitless. You seen Limitless, right? The pill one thing. That could be cool. Or another one for you, Survivor. Right. But literally you have the first part as super comedic, like panicking, oh my god, how am I going to survive on this island, and then just this this moment of all this wild cannabis all over the place. Hempcrete, bioplastic. Yeah, it literally just starts building a fucking cabin out of fucking everything. You know, people do that shit in Canada. I don't know if you watch any of the bushcraft stuff over there. People go and live in the fucking woods and build houses and live off the grid, and it's fucking amazing. There you go. That's just two nice TV shows that I definitely want credit for.
It's good to have some new TV to watch, honestly.
So I'm trying to think of what I did actually have some questions.
Yeah, let's get some questions.
I suppose you've spoke of vaping already. You are an avid vapor and have been avidly vaping throughout this recording.
Big time.
So what's the situation with the regulation of CBD in vaping in the UK currently?
Yeah, like right now, it's actually probably one of the best segments of the industry to be working in, because I don't really have to worry about too much regulation. There is already regulation built by the nicotine industry. And when it comes to like countries that have done it well, the UK has done that. We've made it so that people can enter the market pretty easily, and there's good oversight on everything. But I think that they'll eventually change that. It seems a bit strange that cannabis vape products haven't been so regulated yet. Almost as if maybe they're looking to lock down like the edibles and all that, the consumption part of cannabis first, and then they may approach vape afterwards. It's a quiet thing in the industry. Like people don't talk about it too much.
Yeah. So is tobacco, as in combustible tobacco, raw tobacco products, and vapable nicotine-based alternative products, are they regulated in the same legislation?
Very similar. We don't actually. The fact that CBD is not a controlled drug means that we can sell it without having to obtain a license. So to anyone that sells a nicotine product, they have to have it licensed. Even if you have like a herbal product that is intended for smoking, you need a license for that. There is no license needed to create like a CBD vape product. So that is the main difference between those two. I have optimism though, because they regulated nicotine vapes quite well. So I hope they do something similar for CBD. Hopefully, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, if they do, I mean, there has to be conversations within each of these governmental institutions where they're going, we can't just set the rules for today. What's going to happen tomorrow? So they're going to have to be considering that THC vape, the CBN vape, that a CBD vape, a CBG vape are eventually going to have to end up under the same regulation.
Yeah.
So I think that it's probably more of not so much an oversight, but it's the fact that it doesn't fit under their definition of consumable. Do you know what I mean? And I think because of that, like you say, they're going to take the opportunity to say they're the mysterious wizards that rule our land. You know what I mean? The powers that be that have already got this foot in the door, that have already kind of corrupted a lot of the chambers of power in this country by offering people ungodly sums and giving them advisory positions, etc. Has meant that they are setting the regulation to benefit and control them. So I can see that being deliberately left out, because look at what happened with France, with the case in Europe as well with the
cannabis.
Yeah, so I think
I wonder, like with the vape thing, it's different with cannabis vapes and nicotine vapes, because a cannabis vape could be a distillate, which is not involving any actual oils to mix it with. It's just a pure cannabis extract. You can have like solventless based vape products, which aren't really distillate, but they're again not using a cutting agent. And I see that these kind of like those kind of vape products causing a bit of it's going to be like a new thing for regulators in the UK, because they're not used to that. They're used to PG, VG, nicotine salts, but cannabis is just like so different. You can do that but that's not really where it gets interesting. It starts to get interesting when you move away from like the PG side of things.
Yeah, but there are much healthier alternatives and much, I suppose, more sociable. It's always felt weird whenever I've seen people that use a PG mix with a cannabis oil. Often it's people that I know that make their own at home. But it's weird to see thick clouds, to have a thick cloud from a cannabis vape like that. I can't get used to the aesthetic of that, the optics of it. You know what I mean?
It's probably just people that have an attachment to smoking. Like I feel like I'm perhaps addicted to the habit of inhaling and exhaling, and just getting a nice big cloud can be quite satisfying sometimes, even though it's like that's not really part of cannabis. Like, you don't smoke weed to get the big clouds.
Yeah.
No, you're usually hiding.
Yeah. What else did I want to ask you about? So I suppose we discussed briefly the FSA, but I suppose we didn't really touch.
The funny thing is, we spoke about so much stuff on the first one. I can tell you just don't want to do a complete repetition of the first podcast.
Well, no, I mean, there's no point either. Do you know? Like, I think it would be a disservice to all of us, and even as it would have been to put out half an episode. Do you know what I mean? It would have been very unfair to you as well. So
yeah, I mean, we did name out a few people, and it was quite a controversial episode.
It was definitely, yeah. So I shit the bed and just said, no, I'm gonna put it in the bin now.
No, they get saved by fortune. You know what I mean? There's something to that. Maybe there's a reason that we had that glitch and lost the mics. But whatever, that's for us to muse on. We know that information, and maybe someday we'll be able to make it as public as we want it to be. But the question I wanted to sort of allude to next was, CBD is a novel food. Do you believe it? Do you think it's true? Do you think it meets the criteria as a novel food?
No way. What the definition for novel food was meant to be like foods that are new past a certain date.
I think it was 1995.
95. I'm 1995. That's how old I am. It's like ridiculous. The CBD is well, the discovery or the use of it in mainstream culture is that old, because and then I remember there were trade bodies trying to fight against that and prove that CBD specifically had been used for some time, and they found like rich cannabis rich in CBD in one of the Egyptian pharaoh's tombs. And I mean, I'm not saying that is our evidence, but it's just insane that we can go that far back. We can go into a pharaoh's tomb and pull out something that the government are trying to say just has only become mainstream since 95. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's even older than that. We've seen remnants recently of, is it Chinese, ancient Chinese cultures using it, up to 10, 15,000.
Even older. So I think we have ancient Mesopotamia.
Now, have we actually found that? I think there was physical evidence found, I think. Like actual.
No, so there wasn't actually like preserved flour or anything like that.
No, but it was in the ashes, wasn't it?
No, there was stuff found on the stones and the equipment that they'd sort of used to burn it. Yeah, so they'd find like residues. But yeah, I mean, yeah. So look at what we know from a study from last year, the year before, that traced back the lineage of cannabis through the Cannabici family and back further to about, I think it's 28.4 million years ago. This plant has been on its shit for a long time, and it's been evolving and been adapting. And then we got a hold of it at some point when we decided to go, let's go over there. And we took this thing with us. And wherever we put it, it adapted and it changed and it evolved. And it wasn't that we just agriculturalized it and we cultivated it and grew it and cycled it. We allowed it to explore its own environment, to explore its own potential. And this is why we ended up with such variants of these plants in various regions, each of which has such unique and wonderful properties. It has something, without getting too hippie-ish or spiritual, because I am neither, but I feel that there is something to the intelligence of cannabis. Do you know what I mean? It has something to give us. The fact that we can get energy, food, clothing, we can sequester carbon from it. We can build homes from it. We can get high off it. It gives us so goddamn much, and it asks so little for us, because if we just stop destroying it, it covers it just goes. It just goes. It self-pollinates. It runs through its own cycles. It's a wonderful thing. It's truly a wonderful thing. We need to just, for all, yes, I agree with the industrialization of cannabis. We almost need just places where we're just going to fucking just throw it. Just see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought of a little fucking mini computer game actually, where that was the crime. You were being chased. You're one of those infinite runners that's on mobile. It's just constantly running. So you're being chased, right? And all you're doing is like fucking seeds into people's pots as they're going past. I'm fucking gonna make that game, definitely.
Do it.
Well, talking about all these like different genetics, do you guys follow that guy on Instagram that goes to Afghanistan and visits like tribes and sort of more isolated communities, and he'll do deals with cannabis growers out there to buy their genetics, and he'll bring a bag of seeds back to like the West, and he'll have people that are already buying these things before he flies out. He's got called Indian Land Race Exchange. He's got 63,000 followers. Huge.
Holy crap.
And when you go on it, you see like he shows you all the communities out there, the women that get involved in the cultivation and the seed extraction and everything. It's so cool. That kind of thing shows that there are so, like, I'm looking at a lot of the genetics on there, and they look so different to what we grow in the mainstream. Like there are like just solid jet black strains out in Afghanistan.
Solid jet black ones.
Yeah, it's the regions, because obviously the plants respond to the different temperatures and the different light spectrums, and because of the regions of Pakistan, Afghan, basically anything around the Himalayan mountain range, because of the various topography, the variance in the plants, and also because of the isolation of them, they interbreed with themselves. So they go through process of not of stabilization, but of exploration of their own different characteristics. So because if some get blown down to one way and they end up cultivating in a different way further down in the valley, you end up with pollination sweeping around, and everything will pollinate to a couple of miles within each other. You know what I mean?
It's polyamorous of it.
Yeah.
I'm being serious. That's fucking awesome. That just adds so much more fucking character to it. It supersedes fucking traditional but not sexuality, I guess, right?
Well, it does though, because I mean, we stress cannabis and we try to create and keep just feminized plants and just keep female plants. But then this is why you have hermaphrodization. You have stress. You can light trigger a process of then your genetic stressing and then hermaphrodizing, because this, again, it's something I feel, again, quite spiritualist, hippie hop take here. Is that there's something in the intelligence of it. You grow a field of feminized, and males will come out. You'll then get sections of the plants will suddenly then go, this productivity on the lower branches is useless. Let's make pollen, and then we can produce the next cycle and hopefully get larger and have more light and therefore take more space. Do you know what I mean? Again, I can't describe anything other to it than an intelligence. It has an innate desire to be here. It's a weed, and it adapts to any fucking thing.
So going on that, what I was reading the other day was that they discovered some strains out in Afghanistan that could go longer than your typical cannabis strain without water. Like some of these were going quite a long time without water, and then they'd pick them up and show the plant is still like, very much healthy. Yeah. And I was just thinking, like, everyone's always focusing on like THC and the terpenes, but actually creating like a very resilient strain that isn't so cannabis already doesn't demand that much water in the grand scheme of things, but to be able to cut that down, that's insane. And these strains are out there. Just a lot of things are still undiscovered. Need people like this guy going around sort of trading them with the West and
that's class.
Doing deals with Afghanistan. It's cool.
Yeah, I think very much we're on page 1 or 2 in the Encyclopedia of Cannabis. What it has to teach us is near infinite, in my opinion, truly, because it's not even just what we can derive from it technologically and do. It's not just the opportunity that gives us to advance society and culture. It's not just the opportunity it gives us to move from a scarcity-based paradigm towards a resource-based paradigm.
It's not just all of those things.
No, it isn't. It's
that's a fucking lot.
I know that's a lot of things, but it's still not though, because it's what it gives to people. Look at what happens. Colorado legalizes. Then somewhere like Pueblo County suddenly goes, no one should pay for higher education. We should end homelessness. You know what I mean? We should pave the streets with gold, effectively. Yep. Because they have such an excess amount of tax that they can't then deal with. Like, what the fuck do we do? And Colorado sold, was at $2.2 billion last year in taxable cannabis.
Wow.
And it's just gone up every year and every year. And it's going to keep goddamn going up because innovation will continue. People will continue to then go, oh, it must be all right now. All the naysayers are suddenly like, go on then. And sparking up a cheeky joint and realizing, oh my God, I was lied to my entire life.
Do you know what the most common reaction is going to be when that happens? Is that it?
Yeah.
Honestly, it'll be the realization that all of that building up of this pure demonization and stigma that goes along with it will just go, I thought it was way fucking... I went pure Irish there, I don't know why. No, I thought it was fucking mind-bending. It's like, is that all it is? Yeah, that's all it is. And it's fucking awesome.
Well, that's why I think CBD is so useful, because ironically, CBD is a gateway drug. It's a gateway drug to legalizing cannabis, which legalizing, or rather descheduling cannabis.
Phrasing though, do you know what I mean?
Sorry, yeah.
Get rid of that shit.
No, but I meant it deliberately as a play on words.
I know.
It's a joke in it, because then people will then accept CBD and suddenly go, this is cannabis. And then what's the other stuff? And even if they don't have a curiosity to it, they suddenly go, if cannabis can benefit me, cannabis can benefit others. There are other parts of it that I don't choose, but they should be engaging in. It's the same as going, oh, let's have food. I don't choose to engage with meat because I'm a vegan, for example. I'm not going to go around and say, let's eradicate people's choice for that in that setting. If then they want to make that decision as a society and as a culture, we have to provide that product to the safest standard imaginable while providing, hopefully, non-biased education so people can make an informed decision. And I think that, like I said, the ubiquitous nature of CBD, the acceptability of it. I was in a local corner shop up the road, just near where my missus has just moved in, and they had CBD gummies on the shelf behind the back. So they had like all the posh, like expensive alcohols. Then they had some Rizzler and some raw black and like the organic packs and stuff, and then some CBD gummies in that. And it struck up a conversation. Guy turns he knows me because of the events anyway. But just seeing products in like just an average shop like that was just. That gets it there, because then the grannies that have been shopping it there for generations infinitum suddenly are like, what's that? And it's cannabis. It's like, oh, what do you mean it's cannabis? You know, clutching at the bag sort of style. And you have that, and each time she comes in, you get a little bit more curiosity until eventually she goes, when boom, she tries it. So then when her 17-year-old grandson gets in trouble from his mum for smoking weed and gets kicked out of the house, she goes, come round, it's fine. Do you know what I mean? Has changed that attitude. It's gone from being this demon thing to she's had gummies and actually gone, ooh, my arthritis, you know?
Yeah.
I slept really well last night, you know?
Yeah.
Once, and it drips and it drabs, and the power of once you give somebody that positive feedback, you give them that feeling of autonomy and empowerment, it starts to erode that lifelong perpetuation of propaganda that has come from media, that has come from government, that has come from institutions.
Yep.
You know what I mean? The people who have gone, even if I would like to try cannabis, it's illegal and it's bad and I don't want to get caught and go to prison and have my life ruined. Mm-hmm. Whereas once that sort of tears it away, yeah, like I say, it's poor phrasing, I agree, then, of calling it a gateway, but it is...
I just ruined your joke.
It's the first way through. Do you know what I mean?
Just absolutely smashed the shit out of your joke. Sorry about that.
It's all good. It's all good. Won't be the last time.
No, you're right though. I mean, it obviously becomes. We just have to watch out for the separation, like going, oh, that's CBD, that's okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
just need to get rid of it.
That's already kind of happening.
Yeah.
I actually have a problem with people that sell, the people in the industry that sell CBD or have invested in CBD. They're financially benefiting from it, and they'll go out of their way to, demerit THC. Mm-hmm. I think that's ridiculous. Well, one of the things that I used to do when I'd work shop floor is if I recognized that someone, what they needed was THC and they were in our CBD shop willing to spend money, I would just tell them. Like, I know that we're not legally allowed to give medical advice, but I would just tell them, you're probably not going to find what you need over here, and I'd say what you probably want is illegal. And you're probably, we're in Portobello, so there's plenty of places to find what you need.
That's it. It's illegal. Go down the street. No, I'm just joking.
No, but there are so many, and there are ways to say it actually. Like I would say I have like a well-spoken voice. So sometimes when these like older ladies would come in, they would actually take a bit of time to listen. they didn't do what I was saying, but at least they were like listening to me saying like, unfortunately it's illegal, but it's not illegal in some other countries. And I've met people just like you who live in Canada, and they take they take the oils or something.
Clever.
Yeah.
Silver tongue, this lad.
Well, yeah, that's something that I suppose maybe quite a lot of people are still not aware of, that if you are a proprietor of a CBD business, if you sell and benefit from the sale of CBD, you cannot make medical claims, because making medical claims would mean you would have to license your product as a medicine.
Yeah, but I mean, it's ridiculous. Look, fucking hell, there's places in Amsterdam, and obviously where it's still illegal, and you walk in and they get shitty with you because you can't take the fucking menu off the table because it's promoting, and they're not allowed to promote it. You have to make all the decisions yourself. I'm literally like sat fucking there in the cafe, and your man's having a fucking Barney, like, that kind of. It wasn't Barney's, just in case anybody from Barney's was saying.
Yeah,
but you
it's
see
a
my
similar
point.
situation. Yeah, similar in Canada. Like if you go to the dispensary and you ask them like, what's your most energizing strain? They're not actually going to answer that question. And then you might ask them then, so what's your favorite strain? And they won't be able to answer that. So when I asked this one guy, what's your favorite strain? It was my first time doing the whole thing. But his way of getting around it was just telling me what his wife's favorite strain was. And I mean, I just recognized, like, I was already in the industry. I knew what he was doing.
Yeah, a lot of the bud dispensers in America do sort of similar tactics, or they'll then speak of, well, our most popular seller is, or you know what I mean. So it's all about sort of the art, I suppose, of leading the customer and skirting that legislation. But again, it could be so much better. That I foresee a perfect utopia future, because obviously I'm an idealist. That's why I fight the way I fight, and I've committed to do this the way I have. Is that your bud tenders then would become your experts.
Yeah.
And a lot of them already are, because they're passionate people, which is why they stick within that position. But to be able to give them then the medical knowledge, to give them that without having to go down them, you can have the training for cannabis that has of its therapeutic properties without having to go into academia of them being medical. Do you know what I mean? I think there needs to be that middle line, in the same way we have herbologists, one of the oldest medical institutions in the UK. They need to look in at this. There are other in just holistics as well that can describe and talk of the benefits of certain things without then them being prescribed or defined as medicines. And I think the same thing needs to exist within cannabis, even if we find a way to skirt around it in what Mac has always talked about, an open source idea where all of the information is correlated together. And from that, you could just go onto an open source server and go, I suffer with blah, blah, blah. I am this old, my BMI is this. And it goes, according to our metadata, we have found 2,000 people that have a similar condition of a similar age, similar They benefit from a ratio of 2:1 CBD to THC, mostly these terpenes,
Yeah, disclaimer, this is contextual and individual. So
So exactly. So that can then just be, it's considered lived experience, and you're not directly giving advice. All you're doing is showing the information that is out there. It's the same with the menu in Amsterdam, as you were saying. That person then still has to make that choice. So there are means and ways we could skirt around it currently. It's just there isn't a lot of will to do so, because anybody that's doing that research, they're set to profit greatly from either patenting, going down the route of then creating and patenting synthetics, or then patenting the extraction process and the distribution of novel drugs.
Yeah, I'm wondering if, because it is difficult to get something like that, compilation of people's experiences to create some kind of like guide on what to take when you've got a certain condition. I can't see like a crowd, one of those community efforts working so well, because you do need an incentive. And it's like, what is going to be the incentive? I don't know, the goodwill or something. But
no, the reinforcement of your community really is the incentive. And what I mean to say is, like, I've spoken about this quite a few times, like just taking the street that I live on, if I knew that some people could benefit from X, Y, and Z, but I didn't benefit from that, and at that time I was in the vicinity to give either advice or grow or whatever it is at that point, then having an open source database would allow me to sort of explore that, to increase the solid foundation that is my community, that is my reality. Do you know what I mean? That is like that's actually in my immediate vicinity. I think there is definitely a non-capitalistic or at least cash-based incentive, at least. You know what I mean?
We already have the large socialist model, I suppose, in the NHS. That's one of the largest socialist endeavors in the world, if you really think about it.
Yeah.
So again, I pitched this. I spoke on a very weird thing recently. I had to download an app, and it was a kind of a festival appearance. There was 5 of us as speakers, and we had to record individual videos and upload them. And in that, I think I've just lost train of thought. Oh, I hate this. This hasn't happened in quite a while.
It only happens to me.
Put me back. Where am I going?
Don't know.
You twat. It was going to be a good one.
What was I talking about just there? Oh yeah, being able to actually reinforce and have a more solid base around my community.
What I was talking about, sorry, one of these videos was if the NHS was to become a cannabis company,
yes,
or had a subsidiary as a cannabis company, they cultivated all their own to GMP quality. They were pharmaceutical grade, and they were able to provide that via prescription. So it would be £8 a prescription, or whatever the prescription charges currently is, rather than through private clinics. Could then grow excessive amounts of that, then produce and create the same manufactured product, but released to an adult consumption market, providing the best quality product. If it's why is it that we should settle for a lesser a product for someone that doesn't then use it medically? Do you know what I mean? And that's So I think that's the best way that you could do. You could really goddamn do in this country. Obviously, you allow for cottage industry, big bespoke, and still people to import and create whatever else, but you regulate that through various means. But I still think the main bulk, and especially medical cannabis, should come from the NHS. It should come in partnerships with. So if all these companies that want to produce these things, they have to partner with the NHS to distribute it. They're not allowed to create clinics. They should have to fund the NHS. They should have to, especially after this fucking pandemic, after all of these poor individuals that have been put on the front lines, fucking masked up, gloved up, covered in blood, sick and puke, fucking dealing with the apparently the worst fucking thing that's happened to us in a century. You know, you look at it's the consequences caused to our economy and everything else. It's such a gross impact. And they're talking about giving them effectively a £3 a month pay increase or whatever the hell it amounts to. Whereas if we were to then use all of these billions that are going to be generated in cannabis to firstly go to the NHS.
Yeah, 100%.
I think to me, that's not too of an extreme of an idea.
That's not extreme at all. It just fucking sense. It just makes sense. You know what I mean? If this was a sim game, Sims fucking City or something, you would fail if you didn't do it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, if you just look at it logically, so zoom out for a second, you've just found the new medical properties of this compound. Why are you not using the largest and oldest health institution in the country to distribute it?
Yep. Because you want to privatize it and sell it to America. That's why.
Well, because why are we then working with specialization? They're talking about bureaucracy, and it's all because of this medical institution and this board of people disagree with the findings, or there's not enough efficacy, or not enough evidence, or blah blah blah. To me, that feels like misdirection. It entirely does, because the bottom line there is to perpetuate the privatization of it.
Yeah.
Because it's literally all of that money from the 4,000 odd people that have got prescriptions in this country. That should be funding a pay rise for all of these NHS workers. And that doesn't, again, seem too fucking stupid of an idea. If it's a medical thing, it should be sold by the medical people. That's why we have the medical people.
Do you think it's 100% then like a political thing, and with a different party in power, with the right party, we would be able to get there quickly?
I 100% believe that a Corbyn-led Labour Party, with all its faults, would have looked at this. Whereas the Conservatives, with small government, just general conservative neoliberalistic ideology, have gone, we can make fucking money from this. That's as simple as that. They are not looking at this as a humanitarian issue. They are not looking at it as an environmental issue. They're not looking at it as a way to address wealth inequality, to tackle homelessness, to sequester carbon, you know what I mean, to liberate the thousands, tens of, if not hundreds of thousands of people in prison, to stop the targeting of people growing a plant to deal with whatever ailment. They've just gone, oh, if we call it this and change this piece of paper, ka-ching. Mm-hmm. Then they've got their mates in government going, oh, You know, you've got a cannabis company and your wife's this and your husband's this. And if you create this investment company, buy out these two failing firms and you own it while sitting and being able to fall asleep in the chambers of power. These they've combined it. And it's not in the interest. What has conservative ideology been since Thatcher? Eradicate the NHS. Why should people be getting free shit? Why should anybody get free shit? That is like the antithesis of conservative ideology. No free shit for no one.
No free shit for
again,
no one.
like that's a big.
I want a T-shirt that says that.
That goes right back to sort of like just conservative media, though, which perpetuates this fear and this belief that any welfare that the society can get their hands on will be abused, and you'll have free riders. And it's not true. I mean, there will always be those free riders, but there's this illusion that it's the majority, and it just 100% is not.
Well, no, even if you look at it that way, through that lens, it's still only a tiny minority of individual people. Whereas actually in this country and in America, we have socialism for the rich and capitalism for the poor. We pay more tax. We are more legislated. We are more controlled, highly regulated. You know what I mean? The average person that works 40 hours a week pays more in tax than somebody that will work 50, 60 hours a week in one of these corporate entities because of the way they've put it through various shell companies, so that actually they don't earn money in the UK. You know, so there's so many of these different things that mean that the bottom are getting shafted. And I feel that the weaponization and the commodification of cannabis under the guise of medical cannabis is just the latest tool of gentrification. It's just the latest in a long line of classist apparatus as a way to restrain any social mobility, any attempt at social equity.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of that whole, like, if you owe the bank like £500, it's your problem. But if you owe them £5 million, it's their problem. And like, the same thing for people. We don't hold enough power to matter enough, I guess. And the people that do hold enough power, they've got an agenda. It seems. That's what it seems like from the industry.
I mean, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And it's all invisible is the worst part, because numerically, there's a lot more of us than there are of them.
Yeah. Well, even, you know what Cannabis Europa is? It's that cannabis event that happens for the industry. It's really investment sort of types, and CEOs from big companies will give talks. And I remember the air around GW was not that good over there, even within the investment community, because all these guys have got their investments in up and coming cannabis companies, and the biggest threat is GW. Everybody's worried about what GW is up to. What are they patenting? Yeah. Who have they made exclusive agreements with?
It's also fucking boring, isn't it? Like, do you know that kind of way? It's like, oh my God, just smoke a fucking spliff and chill the fuck out.
It's like the slowest car crash in history. So we know this is all crumbling. We know they're building to a giant crescendo where they will cash out and take their trillions. The industry will crumble, and we'll then go, can we play now? And we'll be able to cobble it together and make what we wanted 5, 10, 15 years down the line. And yeah, it's interesting. GW hemorrhaged some stuff that have patents for certain novel synthetic cannabinoids that then are onto the open market. They basically become like free agents in sport, you know what I mean? And some of them have been sort of picked up. There's also some very dirty tactics going down. So if you look at what Canopy Growth did when it acquired, I want to say Full Spectrum Solutions, but it's not. It's Something Solutions. It was a German company. And basically the reason they bought this company was to get access to a patent for CO2 extraction. As soon as the acquisition of the company went through and they got this piece of paper, they went to a court in America to get it made as an international patent. They then, on the same day the patent came as approved from that judge, they went to a court in Texas and filed a lawsuit against GW for copyright infringement for the wording that GW put on their Epidiolex website for how they extract using CO2. Canopy alleges, I have to say alleges with big quotation marks here, comma marks, because it's a big open legal battle right now, that their CO2 extraction process for creating Epidiolex infringes on this patent that they've acquired via this other company. So this lawsuit is potentially fucking huge, because the common process of CO2 closed loop extraction, which is used by the vast majority of the industry.
Everyone,
yeah, if they win, unless GW win this case outright, Canopy could then sue smaller players that will have less of a legal defense, like as in terms of legal team and ability and deep pockets, and then could win a precedent. If they win a precedent in court, they could effectively then turn around and say, we're going to license this technology. They then become gatekeepers. Canopy suddenly then become gods. Do you know what I mean? Canopy are also very quietly trying to get into Mexico as well at the minute, along with a few others. They're all very...
We'll just have to switch extraction methods. It's just another wall to climb over.
But while that's happening, there's other companies doing that now that are patenting those processes. So this is what I mean. It's the game at the minute is, okay, you could, when it goes and everyone can suddenly play with it, who is the one that gets to stamp each process?
Eventually, you know what I mean? We're going to end up with fields of cannabis that nobody's allowed to do anything with, and we just have to stare at it.
Well, that's the thing of it. If they don't, the only way we can get a future where it grows everywhere is if the value of what's growing out there in random fields isn't we're just going to pull up and fucking get it. I do not want to see cannabis behind fucking 15-foot fences with barbed wire and guards and dogs and shit. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't need
that's
to.
That's our current situation in Spain.
But that's under the current climate. But what I mean is, in my idealized, perfect utopia, that's never going to fucking happen, but I'm happy to continue fighting for anyway, is that people would have such good access and such good community links and whatever else that what was grown on the industrial side, people wouldn't nick to smoke.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? We would so remove the industrial aspect of cannabis from the drug component of it, from the medical component, from the industrial development and sort of like cannacrete and graphene, etc. That they will have different price values. We will have different markets, and there will be closed loops. So that this still happens in fucking America. I mean, one of the hemp farms I went to stay in Delta in Colorado, the night I stayed with them, the night before I stayed with them, they had two guys turn up, throw a carpet over the fucking barbed wire on the fence of their compound to go and steal the mams that they had outside as part of their transition. And they stole like two mams and chucked them in a pickup. The twats obviously stole them thinking they were THC because they were good, hearty, fucking genetic, well-bred plants, you know what I mean? But it's common practice. It happens all the time. It was weird. One of the places I went in, I want to say Pendleton, I think it is, in Oregon. And I remember I was driving there because I was trying to get to a shop before it closes because all of them on that side of the county shut at 7 fucking p.m. for some goddamn reason. So I'm rushing to get to this shop. And as I'm driving there, literally the car park as you pull in, it was cool as fuck because it was like soccer moms and all people of 5 or 6 people I would not have thought was weed smokers, all pulled up doing the same thing, like shit, I need to get last orders. But literally across the road was then just like paneled fencing, really quite small, and then just fields of fucking hemp.
Wow.
And again, they worked in harmony because again the people knew, so no one was targeting this place.
Yeah.
They were just like, why? I can go get Oregon's pricing it for fucking weed, best in America that I'd seen so far.
Oh yeah, what was it for a gram of good flower out there?
The minimum they said they had to sell a gram. They were legally prohibited from selling under a gram. So I mean,
how much was it?
We see. I think some of them are like worked out at like $1.20. Sort of that, all the way up, and you'd pay so high. I mean, I paid, I think, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. It's like 50. I think the cheapest I got was $50. I paid for, no, it's 40 something dollars I paid for an ounce. So it's maybe more than $1 a gram, but I think that was the minimum that said was the law.
Like wholesale price.
It was for Blue
Dream.
Blue Dream, it was, yeah, it was outdoor grown Blue Dream. And
it's outdoor.
But it was still fucking fantastic. And their indoor prices as well was still, I think, 70, something like that was for an indoor quality ounce. Some of the places that I was going, because I deliberately went to the smallest shops possible because what I was trying to do in each state I was visiting was actually understand. I didn't want to talk to the big corporate fuckers. I wanted to go to, how are you finding it? Can you actually like give me some more information? Because the whole reason I went there was to have a bit of fun, but it was to fact find, which to actually understand what's happening and to go, do I want to support that version of legalization? Turns out I don't, because it's not what it's represented as. That's just the problem we have everywhere that's currently legalized cannabis.
The fuck is on your camera? Oh, it's gone. Did you see that, Marty?
The green thing.
Yeah, it was like in the middle of his screen.
I think it's this the cam link thing. It gets a bit wrong.
Coppers, man.
Yeah, I must have said something a bit funny there.
What do you think of Spain? Is it similar to the situation out in Oregon?
Well, no, Spain's more self-regulated because they have precedent via in Spanish law, you have more of a right to privacy. What is done in private, you're more protected with from the state. And then there was a court case which basically said that one person could effectively grow 2 plants. The associations got together and went, all right, 20 of us, it's 40 plants. You know what I mean? So then it was a way to kind of create a mechanism to create supply for the clubs, but they still operate in discretion. I mean, last time I was out in Spain, Spanish got cancelled last year, so I didn't go with the one before. I got detained and searched by cops outside of what was Remedy Club the last time I went, but they got raided and shut down. So then what the cops were doing, I was waiting outside the clubs and then targeting you. So inside the clubs, so the costing of some of them, especially the local clubs, yeah, it's comparable, definitely comparable. But then the more touristy you get, obviously, the more the prices jack up.
Yeah, there's some very expensive clubs out there, and they make a lot of money, some of them. They're making like tens of thousands a day, potentially. I'd probably during Cannabis, definitely.
God, yeah, during Cannabis, the amount of money that's generated. But I think Spain more than likely works on a lot of bribes. I imagine a lot of the club heads will have to be paying local police forces and whatever else, because they could enforce the law. They could enforce it enough to cause a problem. And you see that outside of places like the Plug, it got really bad for a while. So then the Plug staff were advising people to basically crotch their cannabis if they were going to take it out.
What do you mean by that?
Swamp
put it in their pants.
Oh, because, like literally crotch it.
Yeah, because in Spanish law they can't search
proper
your pants.
dank.
So, God. So they couldn't look in your underwear.
Really?
So, yeah. So the cops that searched me went through every fucking thing, and they were sure obviously that I had weed. I turned up, I had got about 10 Durham City Cannabis Club t-shirts. I had grinder slaps, all just paraphernalia of shit to just be like to give out to some of the clubs I was going to meet somebody down there. And it was just, it was the weirdest thing. They saw all the money in my wallet and everything. They're looking through it. It's like, marijuana. I'm like, no marijuana. Because they literally stopped us and they're like, Espanol. And I'm like, no Espanol. And then I'm like, English. And they're like, no English. And I'm like, fuck. And it was the first place I was going to go to pick up weed. So I didn't have anything. So I was quietly quite confident in the situation. But I was aware that I had money. They kept looking at my wallet and looking at me. And do you know what I mean? So I can see that scales up to a much larger thing. And because I didn't have anything, I had a point. And at the end, he literally just threw my passport and phone on the fucking wallet on the floor, and they walked away. Went and got back in the shadows to wait for their next unsuspecting victim. So I don't even know if that's probably two just coppers like, got a way to make some money here, kid. You know?
Oh, absolutely. My experience of Spain was it's a lot more corrupt than I had assumed before doing any work there. In fact, working in Italy. When, I'm not trying to paint out any stereotypes necessarily, but my thoughts were Italy would be quite corrupt given all of this talk of mafia. But Spain is worse, in my opinion. Yeah,
there's obviously a lot of stuff going down. I mean, if you saw the Humboldt Dynafem raids and whatever else with that,
crazy.
I've still been trying to. There's just no information there. There's a few people who've posted articles about it. Really,
so I can share a little bit about just Dynafem because one of our facilities in Italy was right like in the same building as the Dynafem facility in Italy, and those guys have had very little communication with the Dynafem team who were raided in Spain. I think those guys, the founders, are all arrested. I think that's the problem. So they have these operations going on in different countries and they just haven't really heard what's going on. They're going into work, but they haven't got communication with top level guys. It's actually kind of strange.
Wow. Yeah. So I know there was obviously seeds with a value of 20 million euros were seized, an ungodly amount of cash, etc. And it was a French article that was sent to me by a friend, and in it was basically an insinuation that it was because they weren't paying their dues in the area. Do you know what I mean? That they weren't paying their way to play. Sorry, to anybody that may have heard that wrong, that was Jews with a D. I've got a northern accent. Sorry, no, I just want to clarify that because
I actually did. I heard Jews with a D. Don't you worry.
Well, you listen to me talk too much all the goddamn time, but I just want to clarify. But my point is that, they weren't paying the local workers enough, that they weren't really contributing enough to sort of the local economy. This was, like I said, the insinuation that was made from the one article I read. I've struggled to get any real clarification or information about this, and this was September 2020.
Huh. I mean, those guys seem smart. I can't imagine it was a lack of license or to do with their actual operations. Yeah,
Mm.
it seems reasonable that it could have been, especially in Spain. It was in Spain, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, no, in
No,
Spain.
no, yeah. The raid and the arrests in Spain, and I was just talking about their little operation in Italy, which is nothing compared to what they do out there. That's crazy. Yeah, can't imagine.
Yeah, well, I think this is why a lot of people are looking with great intrigue to places like Afghanistan and other regions where there is such incredible land races and there is such a connective history back to people that know traditional techniques, that know things about the plants that very few people do. Do you know what I mean? They're like family secrets of how to get the best out of it, of how to grow in certain ways. And they've got within their banks, as it were, genetics for genes that have just not been seen yet, genetics that have been seen.
It's so obvious how the difference in legalized or social perception of cannabis can influence young people's mentality around it. When you watch what's going on in Afghanistan and the kids are part of the whole process, I don't want to say it's child labor or anything. It seems like a family kind of thing out there. But yeah,
they're learning skills that'll grow them out of poverty ultimately. You see the same thing in places like Morocco and that as well, where it's there was a strain hunters documentary I remember seeing. They said something like 2-point-something million people around the world rely on cannabis solely as an agricultural crop. If they didn't grow it, they would starve and die. That's the only thing that they can grow in their region. It's the only thing that's of value. It's the only commodity that they have to trade. So my idealized ultimate utopia, they're the people at the fucking top, man. Because they've got access to it. They've got the shit. Rather than us looking at places like Colombia and moving into Jamaica incredibly aggressively and going, let's exploit some labor. Let's take what they've built over generations, get them to sign a few fucking deals, and then boom, Bob's your uncle. That's ours.
Yeah.
I mean? They're going to end up signing over what could potentially be trillions into the future for a small payday now. And it basically reminds me quite a lot of the story of the sale of Manhattan. With the fucking, was it a gem or a ruby or some shit?
Oh, right. Can you tell me about it?
I'm going to Google this. I may have mixed this about something.
I'll tell you what, that sounds like a nice little segue for wrapping this up because I'm falling through myself. And you don't want to really hear me yawn for the next fucking 45 minutes. However, I do want to fucking hear about this, but something to save, I think. All
right, so people listening, check back. I'm going to fucking Google this and find out what I was actually talking about there. I feel I'm onto something. I may have just made this up.
I think you're misremembering an Indiana Jones film.
I've never seen an Indiana Jones film.
Maybe you have.
Maybe that's why I'm misremembering it.
No, I'm only joking.
We have only got one more question I'll keep you for, Marty. What does the future hold for you?
Yeah, we're going to be producing a lot more visual content this year. We've got this podcast room that I'm currently sat in, putting out a season. Hopefully we can have yourselves as part of it, but if not, don't worry, we've got season 2. Lockdown can be a bit tricky, and I think you're all the way up in Durham, right?
Yep, all the way up.
That's like a 5-hour drive. We're doing more extracts, trying to get into the solvent in this game. Do not worry, we're not going to be cutting it with wax like we spoke about earlier. That is something I'm strongly against. Going to be co-branding things with some musical names. Like, we're going to be working with the rap industry to bring out some cool products, and hopefully do something new out of that and bring some more people into the cannabis conversation.
Interesting. A little nudge for you there. Have a look at the Irish rap game as well, because it is fucking hot right now.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. There's a little fucking tip for you there. Trust me on that.
If you could send me some names and I'll start doing my homework.
I will.
Yeah, we're big on music. I'm pretty much always listening to music. This is the only time of the day I'm not for this.
Hey, appreciate you taking the time.
If we could actually have music as a background here without any sort of copyright driven thing that would strip us out of YouTube instantly, we probably would.
Yeah, you guys should make a little beat just for the Simpa Life.
Yeah. Well, you did pretty well on the intro there, Maka. There you go. Let's we'll release an album.
Yeah, that's basically everything where I'm planning for this year. There are going to be other things, like we've got a flower range as well, which I didn't mention, but that's more focused in the EU, and it's all indoor. We'll be posting lots of photos of it on our Instagram so people can see what we're doing. Another thing, actually, I forgot to say is we've opened up like a bit of a Discord server, and one of the sections I wanted to really grow in there was this section for people growing at home that want advice from an industry professional. So what people can do is they can send some photos of their grow, and they don't even need to say a question. Like our grower can have a look at what they're doing and suggest if you would do anything differently.
Very cool.
Yeah. Obviously, don't say it's in the UK.
Exactly.
Yeah, you've caveated that. So, I mean, hopefully you will be able to bring these products. And like you say, you want to move into sort of THC in the wider breadth to be able to explore the potential of the whole plant. And I think that's something that I hope that a lot more companies will focus on, because if you're entirely just a CBD company at this point and not looking forward, you might end up missing the boat here. You need to diversify. You need to look at what is happening, because big tobacco is here, big pharma is here, big alcohol is here, and they're taking the drinking, they're taking the consumables. They're going to take this market from underneath us unless we're smart and, like I say, diversify products. I just wanted to add one thing. What I was remembering was on May 24th, 1629, Peter Minuit purchased the island of Manhattan for the equivalent of $24 worth of beads. Beads. So
beads,
I thought
as in like little shitty plastic things.
Beads and trinkets. Even adjusted for inflation, this is probably the greatest trade ever. What is that a source of? Oh, it's on a broker website. That's why it says greatest trade ever. I do not agree with that fucking end of that sentence. Anyway, Marty, we probably didn't cover as many subjects as we did in the first one, but that's just all the more reason to have you back again in the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'd love to come back.
Perfect. Right, folks. Thank you.
Got the goods. Just give a little shout out there for your website. That's where you go.
Oh, there.
Yeah.
I don't have the website written anywhere, but we've got some messages. Chill the fuck out.
Nice.
Goods.
Show them the bottom.
Oh yeah. Whoa. It's open. Plus, that actually,
if you can't see, it's one of them.
this is controversial now. We're phasing that out of the brand because of the whole white power thing.
Oh yes, actually, yeah. I didn't even think of that. So that's if people that don't know that, for the visual viewers, that's the game. For people that don't play that, I don't know if anybody.
Yeah, it's that little.
So So the fact that's been co-opted by white power pisses me off. That's not fair. I've been playing that since I was a goddamn child.
It isn't just that though. In certain cultures, that is offensive.
Oh really?
Yeah, I learned that out reading some really weird article about virtual reality. There you go. How about that?
Interesting combination. Yeah, sweet. So yeah, I can see why you'd want to phase that out. That makes a hell of a lot of sense, brother.
Yeah.
So right, folks, if you did enjoy this, please do check us out on Patreon, where you can help keep the lights on and fund this little project of ours for less than a cup of coffee a week at patreon.com/Simpa Life. You can also find us on all social media. I say all, most social media platforms, including now Twitch @the Simpa Life. Thank you very much for joining us. You will see us again next week. And yeah, take care of yourselves. Peace and love.
Bye.